I mean, as techies, like we do like to tinker and play with new things,
Yeah.
and, and then we do have this problem like, oh, we should have built things this way around.
Yes.
So,
More shift left. Oh
yeah,
dear.
exactly.
Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am cloud therapist. This talk is all going to be about DevOps, and is DevOps actually dead? Has platform engineering replaced DevOps, or is this something like a companion? That's kind of an evolution of DevOps. Now, I've got myself into seemingly a inadvertent series of talks around platform engineering and DevOps. It wasn't really planned, but that's how things have transpired, and I'm okay with that. So I'd like to bring in my guest for this particular talk, which is actually trying to answer the question, is DevOps dead? Cheryl. Cheryl is been on the channel before, but it's been sometimes since I've seen you, Cheryl. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm really happy to be back on the channel and just back to share opinions and thoughts and hear what everybody else is doing.
Fantastic. So let's have a quick intro to you. Just kind of give us a quick intro of kind of what you've been up to and what you're sort of doing at the moment.
Sure. So for those who haven't met me before, I am Cheryl. You can find me online at oicheryl.com. I'm an engineer, software engineer by background from Google and Apple, but nowadays I work at Arm as the Senior Director of Ecosystem, where I try and build the ecosystem around Arm, mainly in cloud and infrastructure. So my interests are really around open source, cloud native, software engineering, how to build the best tools and workflows to help support developers in what they're doing.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, yeah, absolutely great to have you back. I always kind of appreciate your insights on things. So, kind of just going into sort of really in order to answer the question about DevOps, we have to really talk about a little bit about sort of platform engineering, because that seems to be the thing that's kind of causing the sort of the changes that we're seeing at the moment. There seems to be a momentum around that. So, in order to address the question, is DevOps dead? We need to know what's kind of causing it to be unalived, as people on TikTok like to say. I think that's a censorship thing, so they don't like to say dead because otherwise
I've seen it unalived.
yeah, their posts might get censored or blocked off or something. So
Yeah.
unalived, folks.
Oh, well, why
Could be
is this
something
not?
new.
Is DevOps unalived? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you
Maybe we
mean?
should do that. Maybe I will change that by the end of this. You never know. So if you see the thumbnail and the video, I may have changed it by then. Okay. So yeah, so what's your sort of take on what's been happening around sort of platform engineering? Just one sort of item of research from Gartner. It said that actually 80% of organizations, I think this was sort of from a recent report that they put out, 80% of organizations will have dedicated platform engineering teams by 2026. What's kind of what's your take on that, Cheryl?
I first became exposed to the idea of platform engineering a couple of years ago, um, from my time in CNCF, where I was talking to a lot of companies about how they build their infrastructure. Platform engineering was very much around this idea that seeing your platform as a product, right? Building something for your teams that your developer teams would use as a product. I honestly find it hard to believe that 80% of companies would have it in what, 2 years' time, because platform engineering is still a relatively new discipline.
Hmm.
I don't think we have the level even of talent, right, of like skills of people around to support having that many. But I can definitely see the growth and the momentum behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were kind of to give a definition of platform engineering, what is
Mm.
your definition of platform engineering?
So to me, platform engineering is around defining a centralized, standardized infrastructure, with the tools, with the workflows around it, which would in order to provide a golden path for your developers in terms of deploying infrastructure, operating it, and monitoring it. So the goal is not necessarily to only force a single choice on your developers, but it's to support them in saying, here are the choices that you could make that will benefit our organization as a whole, and the platform engineering team supports that.
Right, and I mean, there's obviously aspects of that. So things, people mention things like tool chain. So what is a tool chain? When people say tool chain, what does that mean to you?
To me, it's just a collection of tools. So, I mean, tools is an enormously broad term, right? Everything from ID to exactly. I think it's like let's say a benevolent dictatorship of just choosing, these are your good options and that's it. Yeah. But tool chain is just a collection of tools.
Right, cool. And what about workflow? I mean, do we normally associate that, say, with a pipeline or a particular, development that we're doing? What's kind of your definition of workflow?
I think it's pipeline is definitely one, the strongest example, I would say, but I think it's processes as a whole. So within a team of developers and, maybe DevOps and SREs and whatever else, like where do those handoffs take place and what order do things go in and go back in? So it's more over time.
Sure. Okay. So why can't we continue doing DevOps as we've been doing so far? What is it that's kind of made the industry get behind this sort of the platform engineering movement?
I'm going to disagree slightly with the premise of the question. I think we can continue to do DevOps and platform engineering side by side to some extent. I think both have very similar goals in that you're trying for this continuous improvement and making things better over time. And DevOps is a very broad term, so it absolutely can encompass platform engineering as well. But I think the reason platform engineering has really risen in the last few years is because it provides this very concrete, standardized, and very clear deliverable. And the problem with DevOps has always been there's no end point to it. There's no real, knowing like, are you done? Are you DevOps? Have you DevOpsed enough?
Right.
And so platform engineering, I think, has been a clearer vision for the industry to coalesce behind.
Right. So yeah. So I guess kind of developers would say, I'm not exhausted. I'm completely DevOps today. Or something like that. That would be kind of maybe their terminology. Okay. Right. So as with a lot of people who kind of looking things up and talking to ChatGPT, I had a quick word with Microsoft's Copilot about its definition of platform engineering. Now, I'm sure it's plagiarized this from somewhere, but it said platform engineering is a discipline that focuses on creating and maintaining scalable software platforms that provide a set of shared and easily accessible services, aiming to streamline the development process and improve efficiency for software teams, quote unquote. That's kind of essentially what it came up with. Okay, so we talked a little bit about kind of sort of platform engineering, sort of why that's kind of coming and becoming a movement. What's kind of some of the other objectives of it? What is it actually trying to achieve? We kind of talked about maybe reduced complexity kind of being one. And we talked about just offline, I think, before we started the chat about, kind of reducing cognitive load and things like that. So what else do you kind of see PE kind of trying to achieve as an objective?
Well, let's mention this cognitive load thing, because I do think this is one of the big differences between DevOps and platform engineering, in that DevOps was to give more choices in a way and more freedom to the developers in how they build and operate. But the downside of that is that's more cognitive load on the developers, more for them to think about. And so platform engineering reducing that cognitive load is a huge benefit to the developers. But beyond that, platform engineering can make decisions based on the economies of scale that an individual development team might not be able to do. So, for example, platform engineering may choose to do a shift from AWS to Google Cloud, say, for whatever reasons. that an individual development team will end up they'll probably choose what is right for them, but will end up with a very fragmented infrastructure that may not interoperate with other teams very well. So this centralization factor means that platform engineers can think about things like scalability and reliability or security in a broader context.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the other ones that I kind of found as well in some of the discussions and so some of the articles I've read was around sort of trying to accelerate the delivery of software. Again, as kind of being I guess if you kind of streamline the delivery process or that sort of pipeline, then you will be able to accelerate things. Certainly, as we said, kind of improve the developer experience. We talked about kind of reducing complexity. Scalability, I'm not really that convinced. That somebody mentioned, oh, it's going to kind of help you to scale up better. I don't know. Maybe that's that's something that remains to be seen, but we'll see. And certainly kind of
falls on SRE maybe more than
exactly.
All these overlap a little.
Yeah, and maybe it's not an objective, but a kind of a result of it's something that kind of comes out of you doing platform engineering. And I think the other one was around sort of enhanced collaboration. I can appreciate that because that's kind of you kind of talking to the to the software engineers and the SREs and what have you as well.
That to me, the collaboration bit was always falls into the DevOps. To me, like DevOps is very much about collaboration and breaking down silos and talking across different teams. I think platform engineering is a concretization of how that collaboration happens. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just that's and that's kind of I think those are kind of maybe the main objectives that I've got sort of out of some of the articles and stuff that I've read. Okay, so another term that I've heard a lot, and this I think came up in the recent panel discussion that I did. I'll include some links to that in the description of the video. Was platform engineering is DevOps done right? Do you agree with that?
How many DevOps people do I want to piss off? I mean, I think one major difference is that DevOps starts earlier in the process, let's say. So in theory, at least, DevOps should go from writing code and deploying it all the way through to operating and monitoring and everything else. Product engineering is focusing a little bit more just on the deploying and operation side of things. So I don't think that DevOps is redundant, let's say, because DevOps perhaps just covers a slightly different part of the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear stuff like that and this kind of any sort of shift left initiatives, I tend to worry slightly because it kind of makes me think, what have we been doing so far then? If we've having to shift this stuff left now all of a sudden, this makes me think like we forgot to do something and now we're having to go back and actually doing it to do it right. And sometimes I see this in the cloud and the open source circles. People tend to kind of run away with a particular fashion that happens to be kind of hip and trendy right now, and then we kind of go, oh, we forgot to do this along the way, so now we need to go back and do it properly, or from now on we're going to do it properly and we're going to split it up or whatever it is, and clearly define this and clearly define that in order to do it better as we go forward. So that's always a slight concern for me. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
I think you're very right. I mean, this is the nature of the tech industry. I think I've seen across many different aspects, not just infrastructure, really. Expansion, and then we all try and coalesce behind a single idea of how things should be done, and then people go, oh, this is not flexible enough, I need to go and come up with new ways. So I think this might be unavoidable. I think this might just be the price of being in an industry where we really value innovation and change and continuous improvement.
So Cheryl, let's put all of that into a little bit of focus. So here's kind of my sort of conclusions. I'm kind of seeing maybe a split somewhere between kind of, the development side and kind of the infrastructure and operations side, the tooling side of the world. So under DevOps, we kind of have software engineering, people kind of talking more about developers being software engineers these days, and potentially SRE. Would you put kind of SRE under that sort of side of things as well?
Well, first of all, I think developers and software engineers, that terminology, software engineering has been around for a lot longer than platform engineering has. And I think software engineering and SRE, the split there, that came out of Google, right? That SRE was the Google terminology and the Google way of doing things. To me, like, that's much of a muchness, developer, software engineer. I mean, not only are those terms not clearly defined, but between organizations, they're going to be different as well.
Right. Yeah.
So
okay.
For me, like, call yourself whatever.
Right. Excellent. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think that's kind of maybe for me, that's kind of, I see that as kind of one side. Now, as we said, the formation of our tools or tool chains and various other things have come under this sort of, the internal developer platform, the IDP as it's called, under the sort of the platform engineering sort of umbrella. And I think, again, that for me is both the tools and the standards of tools for doing development or software engineering, as well as the kind of the infrastructure aspect of it as well. There was actually, I think I mentioned to you before we started the talk, there was a really nice Venn diagram somebody put up on LinkedIn. So I will try and include a link to that, guys, if you actually to have that, or I might put it up on the screen any minute now somewhere. So we'll see. I'll see if I can do that later. But point being is that kind of put, I think, for me quite nicely the roles of DevOps, platform engineering, SRE, and there was kind of a Venn diagram, which I think kind of gave you a sort of a pictorial of it, which was really nice. Okay, so yeah, so internal developer platform, that's kind of seems to be something that's happening. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that specifically, but it seems to kind of be born out of that sort of whole platform engineering movement.
I think that is the major deliverable of a platform engineer. There's another aspect which we haven't talked about so far, which is the internal education and advocacy. Because to get people to actually switch to your shiny new platform that you provided for them takes a lot of work. A lot of platform engineers are also required to go out and meet with those developer teams and not only talk to them about what they would like, but then encourage them to make that transition.
Right. Yeah. And I think this kind of, to get a little bit of, you need to do a little bit of championing around platform engineering as well. As we said, that, there is potentially kind of friction there, or there's people who kind of might, want to, or they like the kind of tooling and things like that they've been using so far. And then we kind of, the platform engineering kind of coming in with these standards and almost kind of dictating that a little bit to them. And therefore, I think certainly in the discussion I had in the panel, we said that we need to take those people along with us on the journey, right? So they need to kind of come along the journey, and we need to, re-enable and kind of get them, into this kind of new way of thinking around, doing software engineering as well as platform engineering as well, and those kind of being two separate things.
I really like how Spotify has presented it, which is that you provide a golden path for developers, but you don't restrict them. So you provide, what is it, the guardrails, but not, I've forgotten the exact term, that might not be a Spotify one. But the idea is, developers can go, if they really wanted to, and choose to write it in Haskell and deploy it on some obscure whatever cloud provider, or build their own, but they have to understand the trade-offs that they would make by doing so. So by providing a couple of good options and then saying, if you want to do something else, then you can do so, but then you're responsible for this and this and this and this and this that would otherwise be provided for you. I think that's a better way to frame it, rather than saying, oh, you only have these few choices and that's it, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a kind of a diplomatic way of doing it, and that will maybe get people to come along, on the journey as well, because I think that is kind of useful.
I mean, as techies, like, we do like to tinker and play with new things,
Yeah.
and then we do have this problem, like, oh, we should have built things this way around.
Yes, more shift left. Oh dear.
Yeah, exactly. Just life, I think.
Right. Okay. So, what is your kind of takeaways from all of these sort of movements? And is DevOps dead? I think we've probably answered the question. DevOps is not necessarily dead.
Not necessarily dead.
It's kind of evolving, I guess, would be the right way to put it.
It's evolving, and I think each organization has a different level of scale and complexity where something like platform engineering might be needed. If you have a very small startup, you're not going to start out by having a full-fledged platform engineering team. It's only once you get to a certain point that makes sense. But the other thing I'd like to emphasize is we all are striving for the same things at the end of the day. You want a smooth experience, you want to give people enough choice and flexibility over so that they can build the right things and deliver customer value and all of this. So I don't want to call anything dead, because it implies that this was
alive.
Unalive. Because it was never the case that DevOps was the one and only way to do things. But I definitely would encourage organizations who are running into these issues to look into platform engineering and consider whether it is a good choice for you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you from an organization point of view. Organizations like to label and pigeonhole everything. That's kind of well-defined sort of remits for everything, right? Even sort of jobs, like jobs have definitions, they have descriptions and titles and so on. So it's always kind of, you need to have like a clear cut approach to kind of how you do that. And I guess when things kind of mature, and they kind of grow up, you would kind of need to have, you need to kind of apply that sort of slight level of discipline, to how kind of you do things. Am I agreeing with platform engineering? Oh my word, you've convinced me. So but I do agree with that, and I think we just, as we said, before, and I keep kind of pointing out to people, is that we do need to have that understanding to take these take our sort of development teams along with us on the journey, as well, not leave anybody behind really on that. And if there's kind of re-enablement that needs to happen or whatever, then we do that, and we do that in a kind of a inclusive way. I think that'll be the good approach. So yeah, so I think it seems to be kind of the platform engineering is kind of got a lot more to do, but I think it seems to make sense. It's kind of almost like having a mature version of DevOps essentially. What's your kind of final remarks or final thoughts on that?
You just reminded me that before this, out of curiosity, I looked up the Google Trends of DevOps versus platform engineering. Platform engineering is like 0, right? We're in this world where we're like, DevOps is dead and platform engineering is the cool thing.
Yeah.
Whereas out there, to a lot of people, DevOps is still the new cool thing.
Yeah.
So, we're obviously coming at this from our point of view and our experiences. Having said that, I do think platform engineering is a very solid approach. I like the tenets around platform engineering, and I've seen it work very successfully in companies like Spotify, like Condé Nast, just companies that are forward thinking and think about what their infrastructure will look like over time. So I guess I just want to encourage you to keep all of this in mind, and there's no right answer for things, but go out there and educate yourself, and then try and just make the best decisions you can.
Right. Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. I always appreciate your insights, and it's always good fun to have these conversations, and maybe just throw some sort of humorous stuff around in terms of terms and ideas and stuff like that. That's always good. So really useful to have you on. All the links about Cheryl and a lot of the stuff that we've discussed, including that Google report that she dug up while we were preparing for the recording, will be in the description of the video. I want you guys all to please remember to subscribe to the channel to support me, and we will see you soon. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to subscribe, maybe reshare, maybe make some comments. I'd really appreciate that. Bye for now.